Welcome to Taiwan Report News Brief, news and analysis from Taiwan. I'm Donovan Smith. Up today in the program, the government is to let older people drive heavy vehicles. The U.S. State Department calls for WHA observer status. And we get some support from Italy's largest paper. But up first, of course, coronavirus news. Now, in Ketagalan Media, if you want to find out what it's like living under quarantine with a dodgy GPS and lots of visits from the police, you can check out my article on that experience titled Quarantined, When Taiwan's Phone Tracking System Goes Awry. Again, that's on Ketagalan Media. Up first, Focus Taiwan. Taiwan adds 7 new cases of COVID-19, total up to 355. Only one of the new 7 cases is local. In the Taipei Times, virus outbreak, fines authorized for unmasked riders. People who refuse to wear a mask on public transportation after being asked to do so would face a 3,000 to 15,000 NT fine, effective immediately, the Central Epidemic Command Center said yesterday after announcing 9 additional COVID-19 cases. Also in the Taipei Times, the headline reads, Virus Outbreak, Companies to Get Salary Assistance. The Ministry of Economic Affairs yesterday said it would subsidize up to 40% of workers' salaries for businesses that have been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. Funded by a 39.6 billion NT budget, part of a newly expanded 1.05 trillion NT economic stimulus package approved by the Executive Yuan on Thursday, the ministry plans to assist companies with employee wages to help prevent job cuts. Companies facing an annual drop in sales of at least 50% for 2 consecutive months can apply for the financial aid, which would cover up to 40% of their of their employees' monthly salaries for a maximum of 3 months, the ministry said. The ministry said it would also subsidize a one-time injection of working capital for such firms based on their number of employees and hand out a 30% discount at utility rates. The financial aid comes on top of another plan launched last week, which includes a 5 to 10% discount on utility rates for companies with at least a 15% decline in revenue on an annual basis. The ministry said it was also offering to defer rent for 1 to 3 years with no interest for companies operating production sites in the nation's industrial parks and export processing zones. While the ministry has aimed to shelter local industries from a global economic slowdown caused by the pandemic, its approach toward boosting consumer spending has been relatively timid. Ministry of Economic Affairs Shen Rongjin on Thursday announced that a budget for coupons, which are to be issued by the end of the month and would be valid for up to 3 months, had been increased to 11 billion NT. Capped at 1,000 NT per person per month, the coupons would mainly be redeemable when using mobile payment systems and consist of 25% discount on purchases, translating into spending of at least 4,000 NT per person. The coupons would not be usable for purchases on e-commerce platforms, delivery services, convenience stores, supermarkets, or hypermarkets, which have been reported growing sales amid the virus crisis, the ministry said. That means you should be spending it all on hookers and booze, apparently. Now, there's a few questions here in this. For example, it talks about here an annual drop in sales of at least 50% for 2 consecutive months to apply for the financial aid. This, of course, raises the question, what if a company has been only recently founded? They haven't been open for a year. What happens then? In fact, most new businesses, including restaurants, a majority of them don't survive a year. And if you're a new restaurant, this is when you quite frequently have blown your savings to get this thing off the ground. So they will suffer badly if there's no exemptions for that. Some other questions that also come into mind is that, for example, if you have a drop in sales of 50%, how are they counting this? Are they doing it by revenue or what exactly? Now, also another factor that they're not really they're not really looking into here is that some companies have costs that are not primarily in labor, whereas in other ones, it's almost entirely labor. So how this is going to apply to different businesses and how it's going to benefit different businesses will be very different across industries and within individual firms. Moving on, Taipei Times, driving age limits under review. Planned amendments to traffic and transportation laws would relax regulations on older drivers and push back age restrictions on tour bus drivers. An aging population and policies that raise the retirement age along with driver shortage issues all point to the need for raising the age limit for large vehicle drivers. Now, the amendments to the transportation management regulations and road traffic security rules would likely take place in the second half of this year. The age of large vehicle drivers cannot exceed 65, but there are 3,369 large vehicle drivers nationwide who are 64 years old, meaning that without changes, the driver shortage that bus companies and tour agencies are already experiencing would worsen. Now, this says here that the ministry said that due to the inherent risks associated with driving large vehicles, there must be stringent physical exams as well as other measures to protect passengers. In its planned rule revision, qualified drivers older than 65 cannot have hypertension, and there's a series of diseases here. They have to prove that they are capable of controlling those conditions, such as cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, epilepsy, and stroke. Moving on to Focus Taiwan, U.S. State Department calls for Taiwan to receive WHO observer status. The United States State Department on Friday called for Taiwan to receive observer status in the WHO and said Taiwan's model for fighting the COVID-19 coronavirus could benefit countries around the world. Quote, Taiwan is a leader in preventing the spread of COVID-19. The United States and Taiwan hope to share the Taiwan model with countries around the world. Taiwan has a role to play in global health and should be a World Health Assembly observer, the department's Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs tweeted. The two countries have closely collaborated on public health efforts in recent weeks as the U.S. deals with a sharp increase in COVID-19 cases, which numbered 277,000 as of Friday and have resulted in 7,141 deaths. Now, this is, to a certain degree, it's theater, but it's useful theater. In other words, the PRC, the People's Republic of China, will block any efforts because they are one of the biggest funders after the United States of the World Health Organization. And essentially, Dr. Tedros, who heads up the World Health Organization, has been very clear that he is essentially supporting the Chinese position on this. Plus, the United Nations, again, the Security Council there has the People's Republic has a veto on the Security Council. On the other hand, this is a loud statement of support for Taiwan and is leading the way in getting other nations to express their support and frustration at China's blocking of Taiwan's entry as an observer. If there's enough pressure, it could be that the People's Republic could consider allowing Taiwan back as an observer, which they did under the Ma administration. And finally, Radio Taiwan International. Taiwan exists independently of China, Italian newspaper, reads the headline. Italy's biggest newspaper, the Corriere della Sera, has published an article which says that Taiwan exists independently of China and should not be viewed as part of China. The paper published the article after Taiwan pledged to donate 10 million surgical masks to foreign countries, setting aside 500,000 for Italy. The article says that the WHO has excluded Taiwan because Beijing does not want international organizations to acknowledge Taiwan's democratic system. However, it says that with global health at risk due to the COVID-19 pandemic, China should put its differences with Taiwan aside for now and make an exception. The article also says that while Taiwan is only about 100 kilometers from China's east coast, it has been able to keep its number of confirmed cases to only a little over 300. It says that other countries should learn from Taiwan's success. Now, again, this may not actually lead to much, but it's very gratifying to see Italy's biggest newspaper coming out in support of Taiwan. All right, be sure to check out our newly renovated site at report.tw. The articles that I've discussed here today, plus my own Ketagalan Media article, plus some other articles of interest, will be posted up there, so be sure to check it out daily. And, of course, hit subscribe, and let's talk tomorrow.
This has been brought to you by the Taiwan Report. For more content like this, become our patron at report.tw.
哎呦，就是那个台湾狗啦，最喜欢我的台湾狗了。